Docudramas evolve in strange ways. Very often you think you're doing a documentary. I have a very good friend called Anthony Thomas. He did a docudrama about 20 years ago called Death of a Princess, one of the most famous docudramas ever. It deals with the execution in Saudi Arabia of a Saudi Arabian princess. She is shot at the start of the film, and you see that her lover has his head chopped off at the start of the film. And that had been an incident in the papers sort of early 1980s. All over the papers, Anthony decided to do a film. He'd already shot in Saudi Arabia and Lebanon. He got a commission to do a film, to do a documentary on this incident, on the execution of the princess. He went to Saudi Arabia, he went to Lebanon and so on. He came back and he realized you couldn't do it as a documentary. Nobody would talk to you. They were in fear of their lives if they talked to you. So what he decided to do was do it as a docudrama. He changed the names of the people. He changed the way they worked. For example, a woman called, should we say, Sally, who worked in Riyadh as a dress designer, would now become Lucy, who worked in Mecca as a teacher. So the stories were concealed, the identities were concealed, but the stories remained the same. So here Anthony had started off wanting to do a documentary and realizing it was impossible. And because of that, he turned it into a docudrama. Now, the film I'm doing at the moment, The First Fagin. First of all, how did the story come? I was sitting with a very good friend of mine, a very good director called Helen Gaynor in Melbourne a couple of years ago for dinner, and she said, I've just come back from Tasmania, and while I was there I went to Richmond Jail, and there's a fantastic story of some Jewish convict in the 19th century called Ike Solomon, who arrived here, who many people think was the origin for Fagin in Oliver Twist, that this character gave Charles Dickens the idea of Fagin. The light bulb went off like that. That's how you sometimes films hit you. You don't go seeking them, they hit you from behind. I Googled everything I could do with this guy. I found a woman had written a biography of him. She lived in Melbourne, so I visited her. Started doing everything. I knew it was a good film. I did masses of research, I got the story, and then wrote the proposal. Okay, long proposal. It was like a 14-page proposal. Here I have to say, proposals vary. Proposals are just a means of raising money. So sometimes my proposal will be 1 page, sometimes 3 pages, sometimes 10 pages. If you go for the Foundation of the Arts and Endowment for the Arts and Sciences in the States, you do like a 200-page proposal, ridiculous. But this proposal for Fagin was 14 pages with a few drawings. I sent it off, got to raise money. I knew in Israel where I was living there was no possibility to raise that kind of money. I went to Arte. I said in a former part of this discussion that I'd got money for Arte for one of my earlier films. I had an entree with them. The guy I knew in Arte, a lovely man called Peter Gottschalk, said, "Alan, it's not actually a documentary for us. Looks more like drama." And he sent it over to the drama department, who loved it. I was really surprised. I mean, they loved it. They said, what we're interested in is not so much the story of this man as it gives us a chance to look at crime and punishment in England and Australia in the 19th century. Right. So I had my beginning to see the line of the film. One, it was the story of Ike Solomon, a credible story, which I won't go into now. At least maybe just a little bit. He was a fence in England in the early 19th century, 1820. He was caught for pickpocketing. He went on the hulks, which are the prison ships. He experienced 2 prisons in England. He was put into Newgate jail. He broke out of jail. He went to America. His wife was transported as a convict to Australia. Out of love and craziness, he went from America to Australia to find her. The governor of the island found him, shoved him back to England to go on trial, and Ike was sent to Australia again, where he finished up in the worst prison in Australia, the Port Arthur Penal Colony. So a great story of an individual man, one strand. Second strand was looking at crime and punishment in England and Australia in the 19th century. And the third element was this man really the example for Fagin? So that was fine, and I had some starting money from Germany, from ZDF in Germany. Now I knew the film had to be done in Australia as well, and I turned to an ex-student of mine from Brisbane about 12 years ago called Veronica Fiore, lovely, creative, dynamic producer. Veronica, do you want to be co-producer on this? Yes. Now I had a co-producer in Australia who started looking for funds in Australia. I had funds I'd raised from Germany, and I started looking for funds among my friends. And the crazies give me the money, but a few did. Now, how do you start? Now you're a docudrama committed to 90 minutes. How do you begin to structure the story? You've got a loose story, this man. And that's where the interesting thing becomes in docudrama. How do you play around with structure? And I always come back to structure and line. It could be, obviously, it's going to have some narration and quite a lot of drama. How much drama could we afford? In the end, it works out something like 60% drama, recreations. The rest is a few experts and a lot of archives. But how do you structure the story? That is the most important thing. And I consulted with a friend of mine in England, a very good scriptwriter, Michael Eaton. We met together for a couple of days. And then it seemed to me, suddenly became obvious. Ike will tell his own story. At first I thought maybe it's a Dickens thing, maybe Charles Dickens will tell the story. And I had visions of the film opening with Charles Dickens giving a reading from Oliver Twist, and then he tells his audience, well, actually, this story you've just read is based on a real character, Ike Son, whom I met in Australia. And I was going to have Ike talking with Charles Dickens in Australia, till I found out that Charles Dickens never went to Australia. So then it's, okay, Ike is going to tell his own story. That's it. He's the through line. He's going to talk to the audience, and from there we go. It seems simple now, but just. And at first I had him talking from a cell. But that doesn't work, because we know his story actually comes out of the cell and he gets free and he goes with his. So we couldn't have him in the cell. And it came, right, we'll have him talking for a synagogue, from a synagogue in Australia, because he was actually the founder of the first synagogue in Hobart, Tasmania. All right, so the film can be told by Ike. We'll obviously be going out from there into the dramatized things. But wait, we need some more to pin it. And then in the morning, called the beginning of the film, which is vital, came. When Ike escaped from jail in, I think, 1828, incredible number of pamphlets came out about him saying he runs a brothel, he was the finest swordsman in England, he shares a mistress with the Prince of England, he teaches little boys to steal. See the connection with Charles Dickens. And so, masses of pamphlets, because he was a media character. Everybody knew about him, and it was a sensation when he escaped. So, okay, film starts, I like starting with action. The film starts, Ike breaks out of jail. Stories are told about him, film title, Who Was the Real Ike Solomon? But where do we get the Dickens thing in? Then again it came as an idea. We started, maybe we're in a pub in Australia, 1840, and a guy is reading from Oliver Twist. And as he reads, Ike is in the audience, and this guy reads, and then poor Oliver took, the Artful Dodger took and then the Artful Dodger took poor Oliver Twist to Fagin's den, to the den of this horrible, evil Jew. He opens the door. Oh, says Fagin, the evil, rotten Jew, "Come in, my boy, have something to eat." And then the boys go to sleep. And as they're sleeping, this fence, this receiver of stolen goods, Fagin starts taking out his jewels and he says, "Oliver, what are you looking at?" As he's relating this in the pub, Ike is at the back of the pub, disgusted, because one of the guys said, "Hey, Ike, that could be you. They're talking about you, isn't it?" And he goes out of the pub, and then you see him facing the audience. He says, "The stories they're telling about me, you know, all these crazy things, sharing mysteries with..." And Charles Dickens, that vanguard, this terrible man, making people think, I'm not Fagin. I'm not... Look, let me tell you what really happened, what my real story is. You see, and then it pulls you into the film. The rest is fine.